finishing, hopefully quickly, the High King, and then getting into Sabriel. I want to pick up with the High King on 238. This is after Taran tells them he's not going to go to the summer country with them. And he recounts Call, he recounts Rune, he recounts the things that are left to be done in Prydain. Okay? And in the middle of 238, Dallben says, nor will I gainsay you. Because Ilonwi says, you've chosen as you must, Taran. Dallben, nor will I gainsay you, but only warn you. The tasks you set yourself are cruelly difficult. There is no certainty you will accomplish even one. Much risk you will fail in all of them. In either case, your efforts may well go unrewarded, unsung, forgotten. And at the end, like all mortals, you must face your death, perhaps without even a mound of honor to mark your resting place. So Dallben takes Taran's words. Taran says, I'm going to stick behind in Prydain and try to do what? The others are going off to paradise. They're going to live forever. They're going to be happy. There's not going to be any sorrowing. There's not going to be sighing. There's not going to be any crying. Taran's going to stick behind to do what in Prydain? Rebuild it, repair it, fix it. He's going to try to correct all the ills that have occurred in Prydain because of Akron and Aran. Okay? And Dallben tells him what might happen as a result of his staying behind. You might not do any good. You might fail in everything. You might not get Call's garden replanted. You might not turn the red fallows back into productive, good farmland. Okay? In fact, you might die and nobody even ever knew you lived. What did Taran just do a few pages earlier? He killed Aran. Okay? Aran's like Satan. He defeated Satan, or Darth Vader if you want, Taran, so be it. In other words, you're right. I might completely fail. Long ago, I yearned to be a hero without knowing in truth what a hero was. Now, perhaps, I understand it a little better. So what's a hero? A grower of turnips? Or a shaper of clay? A comet farmer? Or a king? Every man is a hero if he strives for more for others than for himself alone. Taran at the beginning thought a hero was what? Someone who won glory and honor for himself. And now, at the end, he says a hero is essentially someone who does what? Thinks more of others than himself. Who does more for others than himself. Once you told me that the seeking counts more than the finding. When? Both in the first book, Dallben said that, and in the fourth book, Taran Wanderer. Okay? So too must the striving count more than the gain. What's he mean, the striving count more than the gain? If I try to do this, if I try to make Prydain whole again, he says, that will count for something. Whether I'm remembered or not. Okay? Once I hoped for glorious destiny. And notice, he goes on smiling at his own memory. Why the smiling? What does the smiling actually indicate?
Happy with it.
Okay. Or he was happy then. What about now?
He was how naive he was?
Yeah. He's kind of like, I was such a damn fool. Believe me, probably almost every one of you, when you get to my age, you're going to look back at your 20s and go, man, I was so stupid. I thought I knew everything, blah, 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 blah. That dream has vanished with my childhood. And though a pleasant dream it was, fit for only a child. Because what has to happen for the child? The child has to grow up. The child has to put aside those dreams. I am well content as an assistant pig keeper. Notice, Call's dead. He's not the assistant pig keeper anymore. What is Taran saying? From here on out, I will be assistant pig keeper. Dallben, no, you won't. Even that contentment shall not be yours. No longer are you assistant pig keeper, but high king of Prydain. And Taran's like, get out of here. What are you talking about? Have I been prideful that you would mock me by calling me king? Taran doesn't think Dallben is serious. He thinks Dallben is saying, well, Taran, back when you were a little boy, you wanted to be a hero. Guess you get to be the hero and king. High king. King over all of Prydain. Dallben, your worth was proved when you drew Dernwin from its sheath. Because what did Eilonwy read on its sheath after he killed Aran? Only thou of noble worth can draw Dernwin. And your kingliness, that is, you proved your kingliness what? When you chose to remain here. What is Dallben saying about a king? I mean, part of it is, okay, so you're going to stick around and you're going to rebuild Prydain, so you should be king. That's part of it. What's the other part? Does a king think of himself? Or should a king think of himself? No. That's the problem with Smoit. And wanting to put Gorion and Gash just in the dungeons until they wise up. He's thinking only of himself. He's not thinking of others. It is not a gift I offer you now, but a burden far heavier than you have borne. Taran, then why must I bear it? I don't want this burden. I'm a pig keeper. I always have been. Taran is admitting there. Even when I led the men from the free Kamats into battle, I was an assistant pig keeper. After all, what was on the banner that went with him? A horse rampant, or a lion rampant? A lion rampant, getting ready to charge? No, the white pig. Dallben, it's been written in the Book of Three. That is, it's kind of prophesied. I dare not tell you this. To give you such knowledge would have defeated the prophecy itself. Until this very moment, I was not sure you were the one chosen to rule. Yesterday, I feared you were not. Why? What did he say yesterday, essentially? Wait, you mean Eilonwy and I can get married? And we can go off to the summer country? And we can live happily ever after and never die? Remember what it was, by the way, that the enchantresses asked for Eilonwy when they first went to Morva? Yeah, I'll give you the cauldron if you give me what? Your favorite summer memory. Well, she's going to have all kinds of summer memories in the summer country. Dallben is suggesting here, you weren't supposed to be the High King unless what? You turned down all of that. Unless you, let's use biblical language, denied yourself. Okay? Taran, how? Could the Book of Three have deceived you? That is, could you be wrong? Dallben, no, it could not. The book is thus called because it tells all three parts of our lives, past, present, future. It could as well be called a book of if. If you had failed at your tasks, if you had followed an evil path, if you had been slain, if you had not chosen as you did, 1,000 ifs. But the Book of Three can say no more than if until at the end of all things that might have been, one alone becomes what really is. That is, the book of 3 kind of accounts for all these different possibilities. And what does Taran do? He chooses one possibility, and that wipes away all the ifs. For the deeds of a man, not the words of a prophecy, are what shape his destiny. What are the deeds of a man? They're his sitting at the potter's wheel of his life. And every action he does what? It shapes that life a little bit. Taran, now I understand why you kept my parentage a secret. But will I never know who my parents are? Dallben, I didn't know. I did not keep it secret from you entirely through my own wish, nor do I keep it so now. Long ago, when the book of 3 first came into my hands from its pages, I learned that when the sons of dawn depart from Prydain, the high king would be one who slew a serpent. Well, what did Taran do? He chopped in half a serpent. That serpent was Aran in the shape of a serpent, who gained and lost a flaming sword, that's Dernwin, okay, who chose a kingdom of sorrow over a kingdom of happiness. What's the kingdom of sorrow? Prydain. The kingdom of happiness, the summer country. Notice, if he had just killed the serpent, if he had just gained the sword that was then lost again, that wouldn't be enough. It was only when Taran said, I can't go there. Call's dreams are not fulfilled. Rune's dreams are not fulfilled. These prophecies were clouded even to me. Darkest was the prophecy that he who would come to rule Prydain would be one of no station in life. So he says, I left Caer Dallben to seek this future king, to hasten his coming. For many years I searched, yet all when I questioned well knew their station, whether shepherd, war leader, etc., etc. Seasons turned, kings rose and fell, wars turned to peace, peace to war. On a certain time, so many years ago as you yourself have years, a grievous war was upon the land. I despaired of my quest. I came to a field. There's all kinds of dead people. And I heard a cry in the forest. An infant had been hidden among the trees, as though his mother had sought as a last to keep him safe. He said, I don't know who your parents were. Here surely was one of no station in life, an unknown babe of unknown kin. I gave him the name Taran. I couldn't have told you your parentage even if I'd wished, he says. I know it no more than you did. My secret hope I shared with only 2 others, Gideon and Call. So that when Gideon first meets Taran and says to him, it seems it is my fate to have an assistant pig keeper help me on my quest, and then he turns that around. Or is it my fate to help an assistant pig keeper on his quest? Gideon knows who Taran is, because Call's talked to him about it. So, until now, my boy, you were always a great perhaps. Until now, until he turns down going to the summer country. So, Glue steps forward. And he says, I've been carrying this with me ever since I was so shabbily hustled away from Mona. And he brings out a crystal. Says it reminded me of my cavern, those grand days when I was a giant. But for some reason, I don't want to be reminded of them any longer. Since I don't want it, here, take it as a small remembrance of me. Okay? Dolly takes his axe. Says, you're going to need this. Okay, so what's the purpose of the crystal? It's probably that it's wealth. He's going to need funds, essentially. Dolly comes forward. Says, here, take this. It's fair folk quality. That kind of implies it probably has some, not enchantment and magical ability, but what you do with that axe will succeed. Okay? Fluter comes forth. And he holds the harp string, the single harp string that is left from the harp that he burned in the mountains. The heat of the flame had caused the string to curl and twine in a curious pattern that seemed without beginning or end, constantly changing. He says, "That's all that's left, Taran." And he gives it to him. All right? Gurgi comes forth and says, here's my gift, page 243. From burning treasure house of wicked death lord, bold Gurgi seized it with catchings and snatchings. But his poor tender head was so filled with fearful spinnings that he forgot. And he draws from his leather pouch a small flame-scarred, battered coffer of unknown metal and hands it out to Taran. And Taran opens it, and there inside this little metal chest, closely written parchments. And Taran's eyes get wide. Why? Because this is like the Library of Congress in terms of what it holds for the future of Prydain. These are parchments that talk about the cure for the land, that talk about restoring, the vegetation and such. Taran says, here are the secrets of forging and tempering metals, of shaping and firing pottery. Remember, Anlaw said he kept trying and trying and trying and trying. Why? Because the secrets of great pottery were lost to Iran. Well, the secrets are recovered. This is what Iran stole long ago and kept from the race of men. This knowledge is itself a priceless treasure. In other words, Prydain won't be a failure now. Or Taran won't fail in his goal of restoring Prydain to a paradise-like quality. Gideon, perhaps the most precious of all, he comes, studies the parchments. The flames of Anuvan destroyed the enchanted tools that labored of themselves and would have given carefree idleness. So notice, there were tools, there were spades, there were shovels, there were plows that would dig and plow the land on its own. So people didn't have to work. Gideon says that that's a good thing, that those things were destroyed. Okay? These treasures, the parchments, are far worthier, for their use needs skill and strength of hand and mind. In other words, Taran will have to work at relearning the skills of forging and weaving and pottery making and planting and cultivating. Fluter, who owns these secrets, is truly master of Prydain. Okay? So, Dallben gives Taran the Book of Three. So don't worry, it won't blister your fingers now. Why? Because he is now High King. It no longer foretells what has come, only what has been. In other words, now it's a story. And Dallben says, but now can be set down the words of the last page. And thus did an assistant pig keeper become High King of Prydain. Right? And then Gideon gives him Dernwin. So the sword that was found, that was lost, is now his again. Taran, yeah, but Iran is slain. Evil's conquered. The blade's work's been done. I don't need that sword anymore. Gideon, evil conquered? Really? What's this show us? He might be High King. He might have grown an awful lot, but he's still a little naive. How do you conquer evil? You can't. Not completely, not totally. You have learned much, but learn this last and hardest of lessons. You have conquered only the enchantments of evil. That was the easiest of your tasks. A beginning, not an ending. Do you believe evil itself to be so quickly overcome? Not so long as men still hate and slay each other when greed and anger goad them. Against these even a flaming sword cannot prevail, but only that portion of good in all men's hearts whose flame can never be quenched. Notice Gideon says, in all men there is a portion of good. One of the most powerful scenes in the Star Wars films is in the third original film when Luke confronts Darth Vader. They're up there they're on the bridge of a ship, or hallway of a ship, and Darth Vader tells Luke what's about to happen to his friends down on the moon. And Luke says, "There is still good in you, Father. I can feel it." And Darth Vader says, "Not." He doesn't say, "No, there is no good in me. I am pure evil." He says, "It is too late." Luke is saying, it's not too late. Even someone like you can be redeemed. And what happens? He destroys the Emperor. And what do we get at the very end? We get our new Trinity. We have Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and Yoda. The three forces of good and such. Okay? So, Arlanwi then comes forward and gives him her bauble, her little, whatever that thing is. She says, "It does not glow as brightly as the love we might have shared. Remember me." She's about to turn away, and she goes, "It's not fair," right? How are quote-unquote fairy tales that have romance in them supposed to end? Cinderella gets her knight in shining armor. Sleeping Beauty gets her knight in shining armor. Alonwi gets her knight in shining armor. It's not my fault I was born into a family of enchantresses. That is, I couldn't control who and what I was. Dallben says, "I've been waiting for you to say that. You want to give up your enchantments? You want to not go over there?" Of course she does. Why? This is her home. Why? Because he's the one she loves. So, he says, that ring you're wearing, it'll grant your wish. So, it can grant you one wish, but evil cannot be conquered by wishing. Dallben says 246. The ring will serve only you, grant only the deepest wish of your own heart. I did not tell you before because I was uncertain that you truly knew what you longed for. In other words, she might have said that earlier the deepest wish of her heart was what? Maybe have a little bit of heat there when they were freezing in the mountains. Maybe have a little bit of food when she thought she was starving. That's not the deepest wish of her heart. Deepest wish of her heart is what? To be married to Taran. Yet you shall always keep the magic and mystery all women share, and I fear that Taran, like all men, shall be often baffled by it. In other words, he's going to go, "What the hell do you mean?" Okay? So, 247. Taran says, the companions are getting ready to leave. Taran and Eilonwy are standing at the cottage door. Can one such as I rule a kingdom? Can an assistant pig keeper rule a kingdom? I remember a time when I jumped headfirst into a thorn bush, and I fear kingship will be no different. In other words, I'm going to muck it up. Eilonwy, yeah, you'll have difficulties, and I'll give you my advice. The only thing right now is, are you going to keep standing in this doorway? Are you going in or out of this doorway? Out implies what? Are you going to follow the companions or go off too? Or are you going to go in? And so they lived many happy years, and the promised tasks were accomplished. Yet long afterward, when all had passed away into distant memory, there were many who wondered whether King Taran, Queen Eilonwy, and their companions had indeed walked the earth. Why? Well, what does Dallben, essentially say? He says you might not succeed and you might never be remembered. But he did succeed, and they were remembered for a long time, right? Because what happens as time goes on? People tend to forget and forget and forget and forget, so that things that happened 1,000 years ago take on what kind of quality? legend, myth. Did it really happen? Was it real? If, and it's very subjective, if there was a single statement made in that passage that we just discussed, that long bit that we just discussed, that you think possibly encapsulates everything Lloyd Alexander is trying to get across in these novels, is there a single statement made anybody that encapsulates that says that? I think there is. I don't think it's Gurgi offering the chest and stuff. I think it's something Taran says. And it's about heroism. Who or what is a real hero? What does a real hero do? Thinks about other people more than himself. Puts other people's needs, etc., before his or her own. To put that in another way, it's the phrase, it's not about you, or it's not about me. It's not about me. Now, this is an idea that is antithetical to our society. Because our society says what? It's all about me. It's all about what I want from life. And if somebody gets in my way, or somebody denies me what I want, and I become a victim, etc., it's all about me. Okay? Alexander is essentially saying that whole mentality needs to get turned around. Because where do we see it's all about me in the novel? Ron? Who else? Akron? Who else? Gorion? Gast? To some extent. Even though they talk about generosity, they talk about martial valor and stuff, they talk about it. They don't actually really show it. Where do we see it's not about me? Each of the companions. Yeah, Taran wants to be a hero at first. And yet what does he frequently do? Which he thinks is all about me. He keeps putting himself on the line for others. Without even seemingly thinking about it. Gurgi does the same. Fluter does the same. Gideon does the same. Lanio does the same. Lassar does the same. Call does the same. They all say what? Your need is greater than mine. Okay? Now, big shift. Shift from there to this series of novels by Garth Nix. Okay? This series of novels focuses on, I kind of got to get you to get this in your mind. Focuses on not a person named Abhorsen, but a person with the title or office Abhorsen. This is like, the office of president, so to speak. Okay? Or chancellor, or something like that. But the person who holds that office is then only called Abhorsen. It's kind of like that individual loses that name. Though we're going to see Sabriel becomes Abhorsen, but she's continually called Sabriel. Oh man, my sinus is really crazy. By a couple of different characters. So, as all fantasies are, or nearly all fantasies are, huge exception kind of being J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, the Abhorsen trilogy, actually not a trilogy anymore, now there are 5 books in the series. The Abhorsen trilogy is set in a secondary world that is similar to ours. It's similar in some ways. It's very different in others. Okay? So you've got a map at the beginning of the book. You have in the northern half of, I guess it's an island that this is set. The northern half is what's called the Old Kingdom, and the southern half is what's called ENGL. Okay? And ENGL is kind of like modern day England. And the barrier between ENGL and the Old Kingdom is called the Wall. And the wall is kind of like Hadrian's Wall that separates, for the most part, modern day England from Scotland to the north. It's actually about 30 miles south of the actual border. Okay? And within this world, you have two kinds of magic. You've got charter magic and free magic. Okay? Charter magic, generally speaking, is good. Free magic is always bad. It's always evil. Okay? Charter magic follows laws, or as it will be described in here, it is governed. Okay? It's controlled. Free magic, obviously, is uncontrolled. And within the world of the novels, there are free magic beings. Okay? They can be controlled via charter magic. That is, they can be controlled via spells used from charter magic. Because charter magic is, there is something back here called the charter. But it's never defined. It's never described. I guess we're done. I don't, kind of like God. Hello, wake up, lights. Here we go. The charter apparently has a will of some kind. It doesn't speak to people, but they can become very aware of it. When two people who are charter mages, or they've been baptized into the charter, and that's the language that's used, one way to check whether or not somebody is a quote-unquote good guy is you go up and you put two fingers on that other person's charter mark, their baptism mark, essentially, on their forehead. And that kind of allows the charter that's within you and within them to kind of mix and flow. Okay? And it's kind of a whoa experience. Now, we're going to see early on, we get this little prologue and we see Sabriel's birth. And very early on in that, we see Sabriel's father, the Abhorsen, do what? How many of you have started it? Anybody? Couple. Well, Sabriel's born, her mother dies, and then she dies. Quickly after birth. And her father goes to the midwife and says, not totally dead yet, just mostly dead. Okay? And I'm, kind of being facetious, Princess Bride reference there. But it's because within the course of the novel, it's true. Because when you die in these novels, you don't immediately leave everything. You have to pass through what are called the gates of death. In other words, in this novel, in these three novels, death is a process. It's not a simple door that you walk through. Okay? And in death, there are 9 gates. And death is described as a river. It's flowing water. So when you first die, you enter death, and then there's a gate. It's the first gate. And then you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the ninth gate, if you go past this gate, then you are dead, dead, dead. If you go past the eighth gate, you can be brought back into life with this kind of proviso. The farther and farther you get beyond the gates, the more, the less like your real self you will be if you are brought back to life. In other words, if you die and you're brought back here before you go past the first gate, there's not going to be really any difference in you. But if you go past the first gate and you're brought back, your personality might be slightly different than it was. If you go past the eighth gate and come back, you're probably going to be a monster. Why? All that was good in you is gone. Okay? And it's in the third book we get a description of what you see here, okay, before you go past the ninth gate. And it's what you see if you look up. It's very important. It's very telling. Because every other time we get a description of people who go into death, they're always focused on looking down here. Why? Think of any monster, any horror film where you have to go through and wade through water. What often happens? Yeah, there's something with tentacles and it's going to grab you and pull you under. Well, there are things lurking in the water here. Dead things, for example. Dead things that go here, but they don't go beyond the fifth gate. So they're kind of waiting. The reason they don't go beyond is because there's something back here in life keeping them from going all the way. Okay? By the way, there's a passage in the book of Job that talks about the gates of death. Gates, not one, implying death is a process. In the Orthodox Church, I think I mentioned that an Orthodox Christian, in the Orthodox Church, when somebody dies, we say prayers for that person for essentially 40 days. Because in our belief, when you die, that's the beginning of death. You don't either enter heaven or the other place, and the other place isn't hell. It's merely waiting for the final judgment until a 40-day period is through. Okay? And there's some biblical and other early Christian support for that. So that's kind of the general background. So there are people like the Abhorsen who go into death to bring people back. They are, I need to qualify something I just said, necromancers. The Abhorsen is a necromancer too. Necro meaning death. Mancy is like magic. Okay? The necromancer, we were told early on, the Abhorsen is different than most necromancers. When the Abhorsen goes into death, the Abhorsen usually does that for one reason. To find somebody who's dead there and send them all the way on. Okay? Not as a punishment. As a freeing. As a releasing. Because those who are stuck here, what do we put on somebody's, tombstone? If you don't know them. Some famous musicians died. What do people put on Facebook? R.I.P. Requiescat in pacem. Rest in peace. What do we mean? We want them to go to sleep and, be happy in the great beyond, wherever that is. Well, if you're stuck here, you're not happy. In Greek mythology, if you aren't properly buried, and, the dogs and the birds eat your body, you kind of wander the earth as a restless spirit. We don't generally want restless spirits wandering the earth. We want them to go where they belong, and we'll stay here where we belong. So the Abhorsen's job is to make sure that those who die stay dead. How do they stay dead? By going beyond the ninth gate. If they're staying within 1 through 8, they can be brought back. Necromancers try to go into death and bring the dead back. Why? Because they can then be used. Like, what did we see in the Prydain books? The Cauldron Born. And it's very hard to kill them when they come back. You hit them with a sword, okay, yeah, maybe the head falls off. But guess what? They're no longer governed by breathing human fleshly bodies. The reason they can come back is because a stronger spirit or will than theirs controls them. Then it takes somebody like an abhorsen to really make them stay dead. Okay? And the abhorsen has two tools that he or she uses. And it's not a gender-specific job. Men and women are abhorsens. Okay? Her father was an abhorsen. When abhorsen dies, next child, eldest child becomes abhorsen. Their weapons are, yeah.
Is there only one at a time?
Yes, there's only one abhorsen at a time. Okay? So it's a huge thing. Because when the novel opens, Sabriel, she's a student at a college. College are kind of meaning like prep school. She's just turned 18. And she sees this weird thing in the girls' dormitory. Okay? And the weird thing turns out to be what's called a sending of her father. That is, her father has sent a spirit-like being to her, and this spirit-like being is carrying the two weapons of the abhorsen. A bandolier with 7 bells. Each bell has a different tone, it's a different size, has a different purpose. We'll talk about that on Friday. And a sword. Okay? By the very fact that this thing sends her the sword and bells, that is an indication she's the new abhorsen. That's like your inauguration. Because the abhorsen who had been abhorsen must now be dead. Okay? Because they can't live simultaneously. They can't live essentially at the same time. So, early on, she discovers something's wrong with her father. She doesn't want to be abhorsen yet. Yes?
Why two abhorsens can't live at the same time?
We're never really told. It's kind of like, can we have 2 presidents at the same time? No. I mean, Obama's no longer president. Bush 2 is no longer president. Carter's no longer president. Do they still get some of the perks of the job? Yes, they do. Up until Pope Benedict resigned, we never had 2 popes alive at the same. There was in the Middle Ages, but that was politics. Never really had 2 popes alive at the same time, because there's never been a pope who said, I'm tired of being a pope. I resign. You can call me Pope Emeritus. So now we have a Pope Emeritus and a Pope. Well, you don't have an Emeritus abhorsen. The way the next person becomes abhorsen is the current abhorsen dies. Okay? And we will find out very quickly the current abhorsen is in death. He's not dead, because you're not fully dead until you go past this gate. But he's mostly dead. Okay? So, the goal, if I could put it this way, the quest that Sabriel has, she wants to rescue her father. Why? She's only 18. She doesn't have to take on the job of being abhorsen, go around the world and put dead things really dead, go into death, etc., etc. She's young, hormones, all that, she wants to have a good time first before she has to do that. Okay, we'll stop there.